What if I told you there was a purpose and a psychology behind every single frame you see in a movie? From the angle, the composition, to the color and the lens choice, everything was meticulously calculated and planned. Today I'm going to take you guys through a few different frames from some of my favorite cinematographers and films and break down what makes these shots so good and how you guys can use them in your filmmaking. This video is sponsored by Logitech, but more on that later. The first thing that we have to take note of is the basics of shot sizes. As you guys know, you have your wide, medium, and close-up shots, and of course, everything else in between. So all of these shots play a very important factor when it comes to storytelling. And a lot of this has to do with how much space your subject is taking up in the frame. Taking a look at these shots from Interstellar, by strategically shooting these scenes as an extreme wide shot, it not only allows the viewer to see the vast environment around them, but it also shows how significant the subject or subjects are in perspective to their surroundings and environment. This is a really great way to make your character feel small and insignificant. Now, the closer you get, the more significance, power, or attention your subject is going to naturally demand to the frame. However, close-ups like this, of course, are great for dialing in emotion and really feeling what that character is going through, but it could also start to make the frame feel a little bit claustrophobic. Something that I always found fascinating is how films use composition and spacing to create power dynamics between characters. For example, the Baron in Dune always seems to be hovering or above his subjects or a family member in the film. Visually, what this is telling you is that he is more powerful or dominant over everyone he encounters until the very end. When the Baron finally meets the Emperor and Paul Atreides, this is the only time that visually he's shown lower than anyone else in the frame. And using this technique is such a great way to visually show a character's relationships in your film. It's not always the case, but in a lot of ways, space could equal power in the frame. It could show power dynamics and showcase how much power or how little power someone has in a frame. Now, you guys have probably heard about the rule of thirds, which divides your frame up into 9 parts, kind of like a tic-tac-toe board. And I really think this is a great tool for beginners to understand how to place your subject on those lines or intersections to create balance and symmetry in your frame. For example, placing your character's eye line in that top third of the frame and intersecting right on those lines is a great tool for placing your character's eye line in your frame. It's also a great way to split the frame between 2 characters, or even by placing 3 characters in each part of the frame. And one director famous for creating insanely symmetrical framing is Wes Anderson. Where some directors might utilize the rule of thirds, Wes Anderson creates an insanely symmetrical frame with props and set design, and often slaps his character and subject dead center in the middle of the frame. And this is a great way to force your audience's attention to where you want them to in the frame. Now, really quickly, I want to force your eyes to this little gem right here. This right here is the MX Creative Console. This right here is a dial pad, and this right here is a keypad from Logitech. So these are control surfaces that you guys can customize to speed up your editing workflow. I added this to Premiere Pro by opening up the Logitech software, and you can map out and customize every single knob, key, or button on either one of these devices. Now, I customized the dial pad to have the razor tool and the selection tool, which are 2 buttons that I'm constantly using on Premiere Pro. And then I have this little dial wheel set to the zoom feature, and this is set to the jog feature, which moves the playhead. But this is where this gets really cool. On the keypad, I customized the entire page dedicated to just lumetri color. And using the keypad and the dial pad, I could dial in exactly the kind of color grade that I'm looking for, which not only helps me become more efficient, but it also allows me to be very detailed and granular when it comes to my color grading process. And if you guys decide to buy the MX Creative Bundle, you get the Adobe Suite for 3 months for free. If you guys are interested, I'll leave a link down below so you can check that out. Now let's get back to the video. Now, briefly, we spoke about Wes Anderson and his dedication to symmetrical framing. And there's a lot of ways you can use things like leading lines and shapes to create symmetry and balance in your frame. The Substance is a great example of consistently using leading lines to guide the viewer's eyes, like in this hallway scene or even in this bathroom scene, guiding your eyes right to the subject. Shapes are also a great way to frame your shots by using a frame within a frame. It also allows the viewer to make sense of the composition, and definitely something that you guys should lean on when you're thinking about composing your shots, especially when you're in something like a city or a hallway or a room. Being able to use the framing of the architecture around you is a great way to allow you to really make sense of the frame that you're creating. Now, one of the most important topics that we're going to discuss today is angles. The first angle that we're going to discuss is the eye level shot. And this is probably the most neutral angle in filmmaking. The camera sits roughly where the human eye would sit, and it allows you to get the perspective of someone standing across from someone. It creates honesty and connection with the audience, and it feels like you're just a silent observer in the room. Eye level shots are a great option for really capturing that realism or authenticity of a scene. Then you have the low angle shot, which positions the camera below the subject, looking up at them, which makes the subject appear larger than life, dominant, or sometimes even threatening. This is a great angle to show a menacing villain in a scene, but it also is a great way to show a hero shot. There's so many Marvel movies that shot this low angle parallax shot around the hero, and for so many years it was used by Michael Bay and all the Marvel movies as the iconic hero shot in a lot of these films. Then on the other end of the spectrum, you have the high angle shot, which instead of showcasing dominance, it reveals vulnerability and weakness. One of my favorite shows that utilizes the high angle shot so well is The Handmaid's Tale. When they really want to represent vulnerability and weakness, they take this high angle shot and they're shooting their character down, and a lot of the time it's a close-up on their face, and they do such a great job with this because it really makes you feel the vulnerability and just how small the character is in perspective to the rest of the scene. Then you have one of my favorite angles, and that is something called the Dutch angle. The Dutch angle tilts the camera sideways, which makes the horizontal line become slanted, creating a lot of visual tension in your image. This is not really something that you guys see often in films, but when used intentionally, it's so jarring that it automatically puts your audience in an uncomfortable space. And finally, you have the obstructed or hidden camera angle, where part of the frame is blocked by objects like doors, frames, curtains, or other characters, creating a feeling of spying or secrecy. To me, this is such an incredible storytelling tool to utilize in something like a spy film or any type of narrative where the subject is being viewed from afar. I want to give a huge thank you to Logitech for sponsoring the video. Again, guys, if you're interested in the MX Creative Console, I'll leave a link down below. My name is Zarfati. Thank you so much for stopping in and hanging out. I'll see you guys next week. Deuces.